in the current news cycle, and I came across the Piers Morgan Uncensored show with a panel of 4 different guests. Genk from the TYT network has been a regular guest on Pierce's show, and he was there again today representing the left, I'm assuming. And then you had 2 other main panelists, who Candice Owens, one of them, and another guy who I'd say representing the right Republican end of things. And Piers Morgan likes to place himself sort of in the middle. That's debatable. Anyway, more to the point of it, I heard a description of how Piers believes Kamala has come across in her recent news interviews that she's done, in her very, very rare appearances that she's made. Another thing I'd say about her appearances, I'd liken them to inviting somebody over for dinner or lunch or something. Very comfortable, very friendly. I wouldn't describe them as being a sort of a journalistic type of environment that she's been placing herself in the few times she surfaced to do an interview, which is the expected thing in a race as heavily contended as this one, or any other day in the life of a important, I don't know how else to put it. She's one of the most, her and Trump, the 2 most important people in this particular race. So the fact that you've rarely seen her doing interviews, and when she has done them, they've really been like either a bunch of fans inviting her over for a chat, or mates getting together for a, dinner debate. All of my biases aside, back to the point, what prompted me to do this live was the description that Piers gave of Kamala, and more than that was the way Candice very succinctly and I don't know how else to put it again. Besides, I think she got her description down to the last micro detail in how she described her impression of Kamala. Without further ado, as they say, yes, get on with it.
In equal measure, have security, have self-determination, and dignity.
You see, Candice, and there was another one at the weekend where she was talking about the economy and saying that, she grew up with people who were proud of their lawns and all this kind of thing. And in the debate, when she was challenged specifically about any policy stuff, doesn't really say anything. She didn't say anything there about this Israel-Hamas war, which is going to have any meaningful difference to what happens. It's all this kind of, as she would put it, her desire for joy, for everyone to get along, everyone to be peaceful and happy, and everyone to be prosperous. Well, we all want that. But the more
joy, peace, happiness sounds like a type of utopia, you could say.
she talks about these things, the less impressed I am by what comes out of her mouth. What do you make of Kamala Harris, the candidate?
You know, I truly think that the reason that they staged an effective coup on Joe Biden was simply because obviously he had been in such mental decline that they couldn't hide it anymore. And they at least needed a candidate that could remember the lines. And going into the debate, and obviously we're still waiting for more to come out, but we do have that ABC whistleblower who said that she was given the questions ahead of time, which would mean that she was given the time frame to remember the answers. And she's good for that. Like, she can remember the answers.
Now, this is something I've been hearing recently. I haven't heard it effectively debunked, besides the fact that ABC have come forward with a statement that sounded very, very generic and carefully worded. And they don't really give up anything one way or the other in terms of debunking or disproving the fact that there has been this whistleblower that's come forward, and they're stating that sample questions were given to the Harris team ahead of the debate, and things were adjusted in a slightly biased way. Another thing, I heard that the lady moderator was, yesterday there's a bit of a conflict of interest. She supposedly was one of Kamala's mates, fraternity mates back in the day when she was at university, and obviously they've all gone on to these major, successfully established careers, and they've met again on this debate. Sounds to me like a conflict of interest.
As if she's performing a high school play, and that's exactly what she did. But when it comes down to it, the reason why she is giving such few interviews far in between is because she is not actually able to give comprehensive answers. She doesn't actually know what her policies are, which is why she flip-flops often on what her policies are. Her policies are essentially whatever she's told to say. On the issue of Israel and Palestine, it is a vulnerable area for her. She does not want to lose the Muslim vote in America, so she's trying to just say things that sound nice, present a bunch of niceties and sound kind, essentially going, we only have a few weeks to the election. As long as I sound like I want there to be peace, we won't lose the Muslim vote and people that are passionate about this hot button issue. So to me, I see her as little more than
A fairly accurate description.
actress, somebody that is more effective than obviously Joe Biden, who couldn't do that anymore for them. But everything that you're seeing with her is performative. And I am happy that there are groups that recognize that now, like particularly Black men do not seem to be falling for this whatsoever.
Look, Trump is a brilliant performer. Kamala, she's next level. Her memory, the way she can remember scripts, she is A1. And in saying that, though, I mean, this is about somebody's ability to be the next leader of the most powerful country in the world, the commander-in-chief, and they're supposed to be able to think on their feet and bring a vision to this 2024 administration to be. Or maybe I've got it wrong somewhere. We're in an era of AI, and who can remember, who can recall, and carry off their performance better than the other. That's probably closer to the truth.
And people are calling into question why it is that she keeps flip-flopping on so many of her policies. I don't think there's much going on upstairs with her, and she's especially weak when it comes to speaking about economics, and you can see that. You even saw that during the debate.
Yes, run that back
thing that
again.
You're seeing with her is performative, and I am happy that there are groups that recognize.
This is the bit that caught me. That's the bit I really wanted to feature on this clip during this live. That's
that
the
now,
moment.
like particularly Black men do not seem to be falling for this whatsoever. And people are calling into question why it is that she keeps flip-flopping on so many of her policies. I don't think there's much going on upstairs with her. And she's
Holy moly. Sounds rude, but trust me, we need a rewind on that one. Yes, go again. Last time.
there to be peace. We won't lose the Muslim vote and people that are passionate about this hot button issue. So to me, I see her as little more than an actress, somebody that is more effective than obviously Joe Biden, who couldn't do that anymore for them. But everything that you're seeing with her is performative. And I am happy that there are groups that recognize that now, like particularly Black men do not seem to be falling for this whatsoever. And people are calling into question why it is that she keeps flip-flopping on so many of her policies. I don't think there's much going on upstairs with her. And she's especially weak when it comes to speaking about economics. And you can see that. You even saw that during the...
Hey, may sound a bit rude, but this is no joke. Period in global. It's a historical moment. The tectonic plates are moving. Whoever gets into position come the end of the elections is going to affect all of us globally. The effects will trickle down, and trust. Fingers crossed, somebody's elected who does have some kind of activity going on upstairs.
passionate about this hot button issue. So to me, I see her as little more than an actress, somebody that is more effective than obviously Joe Biden, who couldn't do that anymore for them. But everything that you're seeing with her is performative. And I am happy that there are groups that recognize that now, like particularly Black men do not seem to be falling for this whatsoever. And people are
Not
calling
anymore.
into question why it is that she keeps flip-flopping on so many of her policies. I don't think there's much going on upstairs with her. And she's
Upstairs
especially
with
weak
her.
when it comes to speaking about economics.
I,
And you
I
can see that
lied.
Muslim vote and
Touch
people
it
that are
back once
passionate
more.
about this hot button issue. So to me, I see her as little more than an actress, somebody that is more effective than obviously Joe Biden, who couldn't do that anymore for them. But everything that you're seeing with her is performative. And I am happy that there are groups that recognize that now, like particularly Black men do not seem to be falling for this whatsoever. And people are calling into question why it is that she keeps flip-flopping on so many of her policies. I don't think there's much going on upstairs with her. And she's especially weak when it comes to speaking about economics. And you can see that. You even saw that during the debate.
Yeah, I mean, Cenk, I understand you don't want Trump to win. So obviously,
Yeah, that was it for me, really. That's the moment that really rang home, rang true. Take out the emotions, take out the need to be or sound respectable or polite, just on a factual basis. Candice's assessment, I think, was fairly accurate if you base it on what we've seen in recent debates and the few interviews Kamala has done with the mainstream, you could say extremely left-leaning news media. That's what we've had to work with. So anyway, swiftly moving on, if I can, there's been another big story, and most of you would have caught it. It's to do with these exploding pages. Yesterday we were talking exploding pages. Today it's moved on to other devices, other communication devices, walkie-talkies, and I heard a car combusted and it caught alight from within. So this is very drastic. Now, I get it. This isn't officially a war as far as the Israel-Hezbollah side of the conflict yet. I mean, all we hear about is talk of we're on the brink of the brink. De-escalating, don't see much de-escalation going on. Without getting too deep into the whole thing, I think, yeah, you've seen celebrations, some applause going on as far as the sophistication, surpriseness, and all the rest of this cyber maneuver pulled off by Israel, who haven't actually come out, as they wouldn't normally do, and admit to carrying out the said act. The thing is, well, I think it gets slightly shaky. Okay, quick comparison, sort of an analogy. If the same thing was carried out by a non-democratically recognized, or you could say respected, powerful nation such as Israel, would this act be classified as an illegal act, or even you could say a terrorist act if it happened in any part of the world, particularly Western part of the world, say, where we live, for example? Would it be celebrated by any departments as such a sophisticated and people marveling over the ability to pull it off? That's one thing. So that's up in the air. That can be debated, or in some cases, some may not need time to debate. You might have a clear idea of where you'll place that, legal or not so legal as an act. That's one thing. The other thing is, I think that doesn't bode well for any of us. Let me pull it back a bit. I just want to touch on something first before I go forward. If, for example, this explosion took place, small amounts of explosives placed in the devices, so the experts say so far, and they say it was extremely well targeted. It shows the consideration for human life and making sure that it's the non-combatives are not harmed. Although, can you really look at it in that light? For example, if somebody's driving a bus in their day job when they're not being part of this, classified as unsavory organization, excuse me, being part of this unsavory organization, they're driving the bus. This thing goes off. Everything goes all over the place. They don't know what's going on. What happens to the passengers on the bus while they're trying to get their bearings? Okay, somebody's I see a lot of scooters in the news. A lot of these guys seem to drive scooters. Driving your scooter, taking the turning or something, thing goes off. You flip over, lose control. What about the other traffic, the civilians, the innocent people who get caught up in that melee? You can think of numerous examples where innocent people potentially could be caught up in the after effects. Now, some would say collateral damage, but this hasn't been fully classified as a war yet. It's something else. It's potentially leading to that. And the way it's going, I'm sure it might get there soon. So that's one thing that kind of concerned me is, another thing I wasn't sure about. So you got two sides battling against each other. If you can pick off either members of either side when they're not actually on the battlefield, does that work both ways? So for instance, if I was military personnel for this side or the other, and I get targeted while I'm on leave, is that legit? So these bring up some very kind of, I don't think so easy to answer questions on one hand. On the other hand, if we're going by international law standards, maybe they're not so complicated after all as questions. Okay, gone on a little bit on that one. What I really wanted to get to is I believe that this doesn't bode well for anyone in this digital era that we live in, and we all use devices. We all have our devices of various types. These devices, I guess, use lithium batteries, and if that is where the explosives were placed, and this happened during the supply chain, if one side can do it, another can do it. Has this now created and highlighted a new battlefront that these conflicts can be fought out, which is wrong terminology, isn't at all separated from domestic spaces that we all inhabit. So, yep, the supporters of Israel, even though they haven't admitted to this, are cracking the champagne, saying, well done. It's almost like a sci-fi movie. They pulled off this remarkable feat of, espionage or whatever you describe it as. Now, if they can do it, at some point, somebody else can as well. And then another group, and then we're all affected. So I wouldn't really want to start celebrating too soon about, something like this happening as a first, because I guess it probably won't be the last. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but no, I wouldn't crack out the champagne just yet. To wrap up,
we'll bring Eric in for a final word from him before we let you go, Eric.
Have a little bit more.
Kamala Harris.
Of Piers.
It just seems to me at the moment she's profiting.
And this subject I've just been talking about, speaking on.
Direct.
Oh, give me a moment here. Give me a minute.
Imagine entering your name and a few details, and all of a sudden, all of your cards.
Right, here we go.
Understanding exactly as you said, Hezbollah gave these machines out to their operatives because they were concerned about Israel listening to their cell phones and
Yes.
taking information. These don't explode, right? But a beeper full of explosives could.
Let me bring Candice Owens in now. And we got Cenk back, I think. I'm sorry about that, Cenk. I don't know what happened. I think you disappeared and sparked a whole new
You went
conspiracy
AWOL.
theory that we had you zapped off camera.
They lost signal, so I don't know what kind of a Wi-Fi package Cenk has signed up to, but yeah, they let him down.
But that is not true. You're alive and well and back with us. Candice, your reaction to this extraordinary operation, seemingly led
was
by Mossad,
extraordinary.
ordered by Netanyahu yesterday, ongoing today, right across Lebanon. 2 children are reported to have been killed in this
devastating.
operation, who were clearly civilians and not Hezbollah terrorists. That's reported by the Lebanese Health Authority, which is not Hezbollah. What is your response to this? Is it, as Jonathan just said, fair game? If primarily the people who were targeted, almost all of them appear to have been Hezbollah?
Well, I think a question that I immediately want to ask him, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to, is that if you're able to delineate how surgical and precise these operations can be with the intelligence.
What's good about this, and that's where sometimes Piers does really pull it off with the guests, is this guy's a major mouthpiece for his nation. You see him on all the networks and channels in the thick of it, explaining what it is they're doing, etc., etc. So to get him on a show while they're debating this topic is quite a coup, I think.
That you have, why are there 40,000 dead innocent women and children and civilians in Gaza? Because that's a question that I've always had. We keep hearing the excuse that behind every one of these victims is a Hamas soldier, but there's not 40,000 dead Hamas soldiers. And if the excuse is that there's a tunnel under there, I mean, just me thinking logically through engineering, you would only have to hit a tunnel at a couple of points to render it ineffective. So I'm just interested in why you guys can perform surgical procedures, but seemingly not in Gaza, where it looks like just an absolute war zone and buildings and hospitals and children and women are dead.
Well, on that point, let's get a response from Jonathan. It's a fair question.
It's a very fair question, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to make a comparison. I'm sure that you follow events, and you're very interested in what happens in Israel and with what our enemies are doing, and I see that. But I'm sure that you know that until this cyber operation that Israel reportedly did, Israel was able to kill more than 5.
She doesn't toe the line, and mainstream media and various nations really don't like that if you have your own voice.
500 Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, throughout Lebanon. Now, I haven't seen you tweet about it or any of the other people who usually support the other side. But if you take a look at how many civilians were killed in Lebanon as a result, as an unfortunate byproduct of Israeli strikes, and if you compare that to the situation in Gaza, I think that what you will find is it's the same IDF, the same operating procedures that we have in Gaza, only that here in Lebanon, until now, the situation is that Hezbollah has so far distinguished itself from civilian population, and they haven't been fighting from within cities. And as such, when the IDF has deployed lethal weapons against them, then terrorists have been killed and not civilians. And it's not because it's a different IDF, it's because, as you said, you used the word excuses, I would call it a reason and the sad reality of Hamas using Gazan population as their human shields, which I think is deplorable. And if you claim to be a defender of Palestinians and Arabs and other people, and you have that in your heart, and I think that your criticism should be pointed.
Yeah, but has she ever claimed that, though? As a fact, has she ever claimed that? I've seen a lot of her videos, and she stands in the middle, and then she stands up for, whichever side seems to have the point that she has to highlight within a debate or talk, being a voice for any particular side. I don't know if she's ever stated that.
First and foremost towards Hamas and all of the other cowards who are using Palestinians as their human shields, who are afraid to fight out in the open, who are firing rockets from schools and who are using mosques as their launch pads against Israel. That, I think, is despicable, and that should be condemned. Not the fact that we are going in there to fight them after they attacked us on October the 7th.
I
But
didn't,
by all
I didn't
means,
issue a condemnation. I didn't issue a condemnation. I asked you a question, and you just delivered me the same talking points that we always hear, and you didn't actually
Yep.
provide me an answer.
I
No, that
actually
is
If you
true.
are
I gave you
able
an
to go into a
explanation.
foreign country, you guys you have control over the Gaza Strip, right? It's a
No.
part of Israel.
No, it
If you
isn't.
are
No.
able to go into a country like Lebanon where you don't have control, where you can't just shut off their water, where you can't be monitoring people's actions in the same way, within the same proximity to Israel, why are you unable to similarly perform a surgical operation to locate where exactly those Hamas soldiers are? And by the way, do you have a number for how many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Right. So, I mean, you either weren't listening or
Can you
maybe
just
I
answer that?
wasn't
How many
clear.
Hamas soldiers have been killed?
Yeah, I
You
heard
weren't
your
clear.
question, Candice. I heard your question. Maybe you weren't listening or I wasn't clear. I'm usually clear when I speak, but I'll repeat it. Israel has been able to take out more than 500 Hezbollah operatives and with absolutely minimal collateral damage in Lebanon. Why is that the case, which is different from the situation in Gaza? Because Hezbollah hasn't been hiding amongst civilians yet. Hamas is, and that is why, unfortunately, Palestinian civilians in Gaza have also been killed in significant numbers and many have been wounded. If I were you, I wouldn't use Hamas information.
Have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
I wouldn't rely on Hamas statistics and to claim for them to be true.
I'm asking you, I'm not asking Hamas. How many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, I'll answer, and it's nice that we're having an interview and Piers is getting a few minutes off. According to the information that I have, and this is working numbers, I don't think that there are final numbers.
If it's making sense, which I'm not a great fan, not one of the huge supporters of Piers Morgan and his approach to journalism, although he does pull off some fairly balanced shows from time to time, brings on good candidates, guests in his panels, and if it's flowing and they're talking sense, he lets it flow. And why not?
I think it will take a lot of time before a definite number of dead Hamas terrorists is given. But the best assessment that I am aware of is between 16 and 18,000 Hamas operatives that have been killed in combat in Gaza.
Oh, let's bring in Cenk. Why are you laughing?
Peeps.
Because that's an outrageous, ludicrous number. Even the IDF doesn't make up numbers like that. Once they said 13,000, then they went back to 9,000. And this gentleman right here just made up 16 to 18,000. So Jonathan, do you concede that Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank? That it's a different situation than a sovereign nation that could have
not really going to get too far into this argument because
folks.
You know,
it's like saying in
know
occupied France.
It's coming
why was the resistance hiding among the civil?
And most likely where it's going to be heading, at least till the presidential elections have concluded, and then who knows which direction the narrative is going to head off into. Very interesting. Piers Morgan's assessment of Kamala Harris's presentation and Candice's breakdown of I was going to say IQ. Yes, I have you on Kamala's abilities to generate intelligent dialogue. It's been great being here with you today, and we'll cross paths again as usual. Be good, be safe, be creative. CornerSpeak, we out.